Hello, welcome back, everybody, to another year of the Sunday Podcast.
I'm Oli and Matt.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
Back in 2025 for our 5th season. You can expect more of this.
He's claiming that he was ill before the semi-final, whatever. But, you know, I just feel like at that point he was just looking for attention.
And some of this.
You normally say, no human is limited. So I can't limit myself, or I can't just say I can do.
As well as event coverage around all the major races on the UK circuit.
And if you're a fan of the pod, please give us a rating and review on your preferred podcast streaming service.
And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest news, give us a follow on Instagram at Sunday Podcast.
As always, thanks for listening. See you next time. And we hope you enjoyed the episode.
Okay, guys, welcome back. Big episode today. Matt's on as a guest, joined by his athlete, Richard Slade, who obviously won the National Cross Country Champs last weekend. And we'll get into a bit of that in a sec because we've got a bit of news to give you. We were going to save it for the weekend roundup, but we thought, why not? Why not do it now? Because obviously that team came out for the European Indoors next weekend as well. So, Matt, let's get into that team first of all, because we had a few surprises, really. British Athletics taking a full team despite athletes not hitting the standard.
That's the biggest surprise of all. And to be honest with you, just the way things have developed over the last 12 months, we saw obviously how harsh they were with athletes on the absolute fringes in the Olympic Games. And they were like, no, not going to take people, costing too much money, X, Y, and Z. And then, of course, a few months after that, it comes out that, I guess smaller championships, the European Road Running Championships for one, by the way, athletes going to have to pay their own way, mountain running championship, stuff like that, which, there's a lot of championships we can kind of understand. But, it was all sort of gravitating towards, potentially taking smaller and smaller and smaller teams to these major championships. But it's to see a full team. I was shocked. And to be fair, I don't think we went through the selection policy with a fine-tooth comb. And I think, within it did sort of say, they would be taking people on kind of ranking merit as well and giving opportunities out. So it's amazing to see. And I think there's a lot of athletes who are just going to benefit massively. You think about the men's 800, Randolph and Higgins, both of those going after the British champs. And again, on the women's side, you've got people like Ava Lloyd, Erin Wallace, who will be stepping up, and Grace Van Zagnew as well.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. It's only a good thing. So we're excited to see it. And I guess all we can hope is that this translates into future championships.
Great.
And it's not just a one-off, at the European Indoors, that this will stretch to the World Champs in Tokyo, where the standards are ridiculous, and it will stretch to LA looking ahead as well. Because, look, if you're in those ranking points, or ranking spots, doesn't really matter if you've not run the time, because to get in there, you'd have to run super quick anyway. It's not like would ever be sending subpar athletes, but just because they haven't got the standard. That's not the case anymore, because those ranking spots are in many ways even harder to come by. So yeah, it's exciting, and obviously we'll get into that team a bit now. Matt, you've mentioned a few in there, but just to, I guess, go through it all really to make sure everyone knows who's on that plane. So women's 800, Izzy Boffey, obviously after a great win in the trials, and then Grace Van Zagnew, like you said, and Erin Wallace finishing up that team. And then over on the men's side, this is the one where we've got 3 guys making big steps forward. So Justin Davies, Jack Higgins, and Tom Randolph, all kind of with I guess a breakthrough team in that men's 800.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I would say on the women's as well, despite Boffey, actually having a qualifying stand as well, she has been to major championships. But I think, can she go there and try and challenge and try and make the final? And I think Justin Davies will be going there with that intent as well. Randolph and Higgins, I just think the 800 is just absolute pot luck when it comes to racing. Yes, on the rankings, on the road to Appledorn, I think they're both in that sort of 25th mark. It's just, we're talking like 0.3, 0.4 of a second. There could be 10 places higher up the rankings, 15 places higher up the rankings. So it's going to come down to how they execute and just sort of learning the trade a little bit. And this is why these championships are always so powerful. So yeah, both men and women, I think, there's either potential there for maybe one to, one of them to sneak into the final, maybe more. But I think if we get 2 Brits in the final, given those teams in the Euros, that would be a success.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely, I guess those is really the events where we've got people like picking up early experiences, which is great to see. And then in the 1500, I guess quite similar teams if you look at the men and the women. So obviously, women's side, Georgia Hunter-Bell and Reve, super experienced. Olympians, and then joined by Ava Lloyd as the newcomer, the up-and-comer. And then on the men's side, very similar as well. Giles and Gawley, joined by Tom Keane.
Yeah, and you're looking at 2 finalists at least in that men's 1500. But then what you're also looking at is people who are going to challenge for the medals. I do think Gawley has a chance. I would say Giles, but he just hasn't done enough for me this indoor season. And over the last kind of even 12 months, to sort of suggest that he could go to Europeans and medals, I might be eating my words, but I think Gawley has a realistic shot at a medal despite how strong that men's 1500 is. And it depends how Gawley races it as well. We won't go into too much of a preview, but I think the way Jakob's moving and, off the back of those world records, it's almost like I think you maybe just go and you say, right, can I pick up a silver or bronze here and contest for that? Because I think some people are going to get a little bit sidetracked with Jakob in that one. But then on the women's, you're like, well, Georgia Bell, you could almost hang the gold around her neck.
I think so, and I think that's fair to say. I mean, it might come with, I guess, like some new challenges for her. It's something that she didn't have last season. Obviously this year she's had it already, but in kind of your race on the circuit, not in a championship. This will be the first championship she goes into where everyone's expected her to win. So it is a slightly new challenge. I think she'll be absolutely fine with it. Don't get me wrong. But it is a new challenge. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be exciting to see how she goes and does it. And I think that will be a bit of a telltale time for the summer, maybe in terms of looking at how much she's progressed potentially from this time last year and even from the summer. Because we spoke to her on a podcast. For her to improve, she has to become the second best or the best in the world. So there's fine margins there. It's not like she can make the same improvement she has done previously, but she's definitely up for it. She really, really believes, speaking to her, that she can kind of take on the likes of Faith Kipyegon.
Yeah. I mean, with Georgia's Milrose performance, it just proved to me that, there were some of the best Americans and some of the best athletes in the world. And she was able to just, yes, it was close at the end, but she was able to kick away from them. And it was quite a messy race from her as well. And that just kind of proved that I think in these Europeans, she'll be able to get out of whatever situation she finds herself in, to be honest with you. So yeah, I mean, that's the, and I've got to admit, Tom Keane, I mean, him dipping on the line, it was so close between him and Billy. I think selectors probably breathed a sigh of relief with that one because that was, it made their job a lot easier going forward. And yeah, congrats to Ava Lloyd for making that team. And the thousands in, man. I mean, mate, this was the Adam Fogg being selected for me was the only questionable decision. It really was. Like, McClucky's beat him on the day. Fogg was ill supposedly, which look, I get, but that's the game. I'm so sick and tired of hearing people are ill and like. It sucks. It sucks for the athlete, but this is running. Like, you can't just, you are not going to get 10 guys line up on a start line and all of them be 100% healthy. It's never going to happen. And this is the sport. And, for McClucky to miss out, I think on time-wise, he's a second slower than Fogg. And this is the problem as well. If you're going to go off the rankings and how fast people have run, especially indoors, when you're comparing people who have sort of been over to Boston, New Balance, everywhere and run on faster tracks, which they clearly are indoors. I think McClucky did run his on that oversized track in Washington as well, but it just gets very complex. What's the second over 3,000? It's at different points in the season as well. So, and he came third, and I thought that was a great run from him, and I think he'll be pretty gutted, but I think, from speaking to a few people, I think he's okay with the decision, and he got called up by the British athletics, team managers or whatever, and they sort of explained the decision and why they've gone with Fogg. So I'm sure there's reasoning behind it. I personally can't see that reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, you can always make a case, can't you? Doesn't mean it's the right decision. And I think you say it's running, like it's absolutely every sport in the world.
Every sport in the world, yeah. It's the beauty of sport.
If you're ill, you normally miss out. Probably running's the only sport where we end up taking people anyway.
Yeah, so that for me, like the team, obviously I think it was great to see just a stacked team, and obviously it still is great to see Fogg because he's gonna. We've got 3 very, very strong men in that 3,000. Fogg, Mills, and Westy. That is an incredible team. But just feel like it is a shame for McClucky because Fogg, he's been there before and he has been given a couple opportunities, a lot of opportunities recently to sort of go there. So
yeah, it's almost like we said it before, like you're almost better off being ill, like in a way, because it just takes the pressure off in the race.
Yeah, it's just another one of these storylines, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and into the women's, and then I guess Laura Muir cleared up any issues around maybe her non-selection by coming out saying she's unfortunately got an injury. So obviously we wish her all the best. But again, makes it nice and easy for the selectors, right? Because then they can bring in Melissa Courtney-Bryant, who obviously had that medical exemption for the British champs, but we know she was running super well before. And then Ines Fitzgerald comes in, who had the third place, and of course Hannah Nuttall was second at the trials. And I think again, great team, great opportunity for Ines. Melissa Courtney-Bryant, if she's anywhere near the shape she was in at the start of the season, she can still be going there to try and win. And I think Hannah Nuttall as well is one who's going to be there or thereabouts, kind of come to the final. So really exciting, great opportunity for Ines, and I think it probably worked out for the best really without Laura Muir, because I think I'm sure like she doesn't need another European indoors, right?
When you look at the grand scheme of her outdoor season and stuff, and I think the older you get, and she's been in the sport for such a long time at such a high level, I think she probably is someone now who has to start really just picking what is the big goal this year, and prioritizing that a little bit. Obviously she didn't have a choice. That as Soleil's tale, whatever, kind of made me and you look a bit stupid. We were saying, she's been a bit vulnerable over the last 200-300 recently. She has. But on this occasion,
do you know what I mean? It wasn't just this race.
On this occasion,
don't apologise, mate.
Yeah, Hannah Nuttall obviously out kicking her, but Muir sort of feeling something in her calf as well, and carried herself so well. And on the day, even said like, please don't pick me, please pick whoever's next in the pipeline, which was Ines in this case. So yeah, big opportunity for her. And we've got 3 of the fastest women over 3,000 in Europe. So I think we could potentially see two 3,000 meter medalists. Depends how the race goes, of course, but just looking at her finish, Nuttall has looked good at, finishing. She really has. And, if it's an 8:40, 8:45 race, an 8:50 race, something in that region, I think she's, you're not going to drop Hannah Nuttall. And of course, Melissa Courtney-Bryant's going to be there. So it comes down to, if it's a little tactical early, then gets moving from sort of 2K out, 1,500 out, I think both of those women are going to have a great shot at really performing and challenging for the medals. So looking at this team, I'm like, we are going to take, just on the distance alone, I think we have the possibility to medal in both 1,500s and both 3,000s. The 800s, I think, is a long shot for us to medal.
I think so, but stranger things have happened, right?
I think have happened.
Yeah, and the 800's the one where if you make the final, then it is
positioning.
Yeah, well open. Yeah, but it's just navigating those rounds, right? But yeah, it's exciting. So that all kicks off on Thursday, I believe. I'm correct in saying so. I think that's the 6th. Anyway, so that kicks off on Thursday. So look out for that, and we will bring you, I guess, a late weekend roundup, more of a weekend preview, kind of Thursday or Friday next week to chat through the first few rounds, and then who we think is going to go well and where later on. But Matt, you were over in Battersea on Thursday night.
Yeah,
how'd it go down?
Actually, Thursday night, mate, delivered another cracker of an event. It really is just, I say it all the time, but, the fact that, one, the prize money's so big, they pay down to 10th, but, winners taking home £1,000, £500 for course record bonus as well. So, India Weir, right, has walked away with £1,500, 15:44, very, very impressive run for her. Good ding dong with Lucy Jones as well, and Meg Gatsby, like all of those top women sub 16, which I haven't fact checked this, but I don't think we've ever seen that at Battersea. It was very impressive, to be honest with you. On the men's side, just under 100 men broke 15. I think something like 98 men broke 15 minutes, which again is very, very strong, considering it's just 4 days after National Cross as well. I know in Armagh, I think it was 150, which broke 15. But, you do get a lot more people sort of traveling far and wide to go to that. So I think it was a fast night. The weather was good. Kavanagh looked good, 13:42. He just missed Jack Rowe's record. Wakefield in second again. I was just kind of crediting his range when I was on the comms. But yeah, he is one of our very best. Like, I don't know if there's someone who can run 146 and, 1330 odd over 5,000.
He's got a good 10K as well, doesn't he? I can't think of what it is off the top of my head, but
Yeah, he has. Yeah, he has got a good 10K. Yeah, I think it's well and truly in the 28s. But yeah, and like his cross performances, and to be doing a British Champs 800 final on the Sunday and then just going running a 48, I think he finished up with us. Like very, very, very impressive. So I just got to admit, like Sports Shoes and Podium and Ben Node and the Friday Night Under Lights team just do a fantastic job. And on that, obviously, it's kind of, again, I think a lot of people who could have raced at Battersea on Thursday will be looking ahead to that March one. 15th of March Podium Festival in Leicester, and already, the elite fields are just absolutely stacking up. And we're going to have every brand there as well, which I think is just unique to Podium and these sports shoes events. And what was a huge success last year, I think is going to be an even bigger success this year, to be honest, because they've got even more brands involved. I think they've opened up the entries even more. I think it's sold out in a matter of weeks. And there's just a massive waiting list as we speak. I think Barnes is going to have a very busy job over the next couple of weeks with people dropping out, trying to get in last minute entries, etc. So we look forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing for, I guess, you guys to look forward to right away, podcast with Richard Slade and Matt. And we recorded, mate, Tuesday or Wednesday,
Thursday.
Perhaps. Thursday. We recorded Thursday. Okay, so a few days after the national, I'm getting my days confused. And basically, I interviewed the two of them. So obviously, Matt was kind of answering some questions, dropped a few in as well, of course. But yeah, it was great to chat to the two of you. I guess just about the past 2 years and how you've worked together to, to produce a national cross winning performance as a coach and an athlete.
Absolutely. And I think something we didn't mention too much on the podcast, quite regrettably, to be honest with you, was just, I think his junior years, obviously, I've only known him for sort of 3 years, just over 3 years, and been working with him for that length of time. But I think, he grew up training at Chiltern Harriers with Steve Perkin, and, his parents are very involved in the grassroots. So massive kind of credit to them for his development. And I think, what a lot of people won't realize about Chiltern Harriers is they don't have a track, so they would do all their training on grass. And I think, just years, the conditioning he would have got from just years on the grass, it is no coincidence that he's good on the cross country. And I think whenever you see someone succeed at a senior level, you just immediately go to like, what have they done in the last 6 months? What have they done in the last 12 months? But I think there's stuff which, you just can't replicate. And, the years, although, Slade will admit himself he wasn't hugely successful, but those years down at Chiltern Harriers, just kind of on the grass, and also just having a great relationship with the sport. And I think that's where, club coaches often don't get enough credit, is when they have, when an athlete's gone through a certain club and a certain system, and yes, they might have moved on and found success elsewhere, but actually they've got a fantastic relationship with the sport, and that is down to the club coach. So I think it is worth just mentioning that and shouting out, obviously, Slade's mum as well. Sue just carries grassroots, does a fantastic job. Sometimes officiates up in Oxford way as well. So yeah, I think it was probably in the pipeline, even back when he was under 15, under 17, and sort of just getting some laps of at the Amersham playing fields. So yeah, but enjoy the podcast, folks. It was a good one.
Yeah, it certainly was. Yeah, you can listen to Matt and Rich chatting through the training, and of course the race itself. But as always, thanks for listening to us, and we'll catch you very soon with that European indoors update. And then we'll be back with a guest as well next Sunday as well. So I look forward to that as well. Thanks for listening. Okay, Slade, first off, welcome to the podcast and congrats on the win last weekend. I think it's fair to say breakthrough run for yourself. Great to have you on.
Thanks so much. No, thanks for having me.
Good stuff. And Matt technically is joining us as a guest today, guys. So he's going to be on the other side of the conversation, but we'll see how that goes because he might not manage to do that. So Matt, how are you feeling, mate, a week on as well?
Well, not quite a week yet, but yeah, no, all good. It's, to be fair, mate, it's back into it. Slade will tell you it's back down training Monday night and obviously yesterday as well. So down at Friday night under lights on a Thursday. So no, it was a very, very special weekend, to be honest. I think like Slade, I'm still buzzing off it.
Good stuff. Slade, mate, have you been enjoying this week, or has it felt like business as normal and kind of after the weekend it's just back to the grind?
No, I've got a big down week actually. So I've been on like literally 2 months since national. So yeah, that's been good. It's been a very good couple of days. So, yeah, we've had a good weekend, and then obviously back to work obviously from Monday. But yeah, that's been good.
Good stuff. Well, look, my plan is to chat about the race itself later on, and almost start with where you guys, I guess, maybe met or even then got into your kind of coach-athlete relationship. So how long's it been now? A couple of years?
Yeah, I think Slade, September 2022 maybe?
Yeah, something like that. I came summer 2022, so I moved to Oxford, which was just basically completely random. I just graduated and got a job in Oxford, which I was basically just looking for jobs, anywhere. So completely randomly ended up in Oxford, came down to the track, and then obviously Matt was there, did some coaching. I remember actually because I was coming to sessions for a while, and then at some point a couple of months in, you told me like, "Oh, so who's coaching you at the moment, mate?" I guess I sort of thought you were. Like, I've been coming and doing your sessions for the last 2 months, and you're like, "Oh, but who's setting you easy runs?" And I'm like, just doing them. I suppose I'm just like going out and doing them, and then at that point, I think literally maybe that evening, you like sent me like a more formal just like plan with some easy runs, long runs, and everything on it. So I guess that was when it started.
Yeah, I was back that up. I was conscious that someone doing just jumping in with sessions is not officially, I wouldn't claim as like officially being coached by me. So just had that conversation with Slade and was just like, I think, and I remember seeing him must have been September time, and he was just sort of lapping the track, and you just kind of know when you see someone run for the first few times. I was like, this guy looks pretty talented. And then, it's a few months in, and it took a while because obviously at Oxford, there's a lot going on, had a lot of focus and kind of elsewhere, but then sort of that relationship started to blossom, as it were, and started to interact with Slade a lot more, and then sort of, I guess work with him a lot closer and start to design a bit more of a longer term plan as well, because I think it's very easy for people in Slade's position who are talented, and you go to a new place and you're training with people. But I mean, Slade, is it probably fair to say at that time you were just kind of one race to the next sort of mentality, just sort of year on year, you're enjoying your running, but didn't really know where you could take it or where you could go?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I was basically just doing races that I fancied, and like obviously I was trying to get like better at running, but there wasn't any like talent at all beyond the next like couple of months. No like real like periodization or anything in my training either. I was just like seeing what the next thing I could hopefully run well at, and then going and doing that.
And that's quite a strange thing, right? Because you already 1440, something like that, over 5k at this point, and quite a lot of people at that level aren't just heading down to the track and just jumping in with thinking you're being coached by someone. They're almost reaching out to someone, or they're going, not maybe moving their life or getting a job specifically for a coach, but they are kind of thinking quite strategically about who coaches them. I think it's fair to say from what you guys have said that it was very much, I'm in Oxford, so I'm just going to go and train at the track with a coach who has a bit of a group going.
Yeah, I mean, I was taking felt like I was taking my running like pretty seriously. I was running quite a lot. I would have been, running 120, 130k a week. But yeah, it's just not, I guess, the most like formalized system, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And what were your times and your goals sort of when you first started working with Matt? Was it like, okay, Matt's now officially coaching me, we want to go from A to B, or was it still a bit of that one race to the next? And what exactly were your times kind of starting off there?
I think, basically, 1440 is about right. I think technically it was 1450 when I came to Oxford, but I ran 1440 like literally like 2-3 weeks after. And then probably pretty much no other times of note. I wouldn't have run a proper 10k, I don't think. And 15 time was rubbish and still is, so need to work on that. I don't think, I guess didn't have any like hard like time goals or anything. I think I would have wanted to run sub 30, would have been something I wanted to do. And just run, compete better, I guess. Like nothing too formalized.
Yeah, and Matt, you mentioned this guy looked like he had some talent. What sort of level did you think you could take him to? Was there that in your mind? Were you like, maybe this is the guy who can, I guess, allow you to coach someone at a top level, you know?
Yeah, I think as a coach, I think you have to be careful what you say early on when you see someone. Like if I'd have gone to Slade when he was a 1440 runner or even a bit quicker and sort of said, yeah, I'm going to get you to go run 1350 and you're going to win the National Cross in a couple of years. I think his reaction, and he just wouldn't have believed it. He'd be like, what's this guy talking about? But I think as the years go by, you start to slip in a few more comments and be like, okay, I think you're capable of this. And you can see it start to just click in his mind and he can actually start to believe what you're saying. So initially, it's just a case of looking at, I'm a big believer in Slade mentioned then time goals, like not really having time goals and trying to focus on races throughout the season. And the National Cross has always been quite a fun one to aim for. Even a couple of years ago, Slade, it was breaking into the top 30. Morrow having a good dust up on that day. That was when Kingston won even. And so it was, that was kind of like a winter goal and then picking out a few races in the summer to sort of build off. So it was quite simple, really. But then as the sort of years progress, it's like, okay, well, if we keep going like this over the next sort of 4 or 5 years, this is where I think you could be. Having that conversation and seeing if an athlete is willing to commit, because I think, you mentioned it, like 1430 is probably that perfect athlete who they love running, they're training hard. But when you open up their eyes to the next level, they'll either have two opinions on whether they can commit to the sport and whether they can actually do what's needed to go to that next level, or if they're just happy, training hard and staying in their same routine. And it is difficult to change your routine and to sort of double down. And I think a lot of people, although they like the idea of it, struggle to execute.
What are your thoughts on that, Rich? Is that something that you're aware of in terms of like the fact that, I guess, not that Matt had these grand plans for you, but in the background, that was kind of ticking away in his mind? Because from my perspective, that's why I found this last weekend so interesting, because he's been chatting to me about you for, well, probably at least a year or so, and about the National for at least 6 months.
I remember actually when you saying about the National Cross, like that first winner, where we were working together. He said I came 29th, and I think he sent me a text right after that, and he like top 10 next year, and I was like, feels like quite a lot. But okay, sure. Yeah, I think you were dropping a few of those in that were just like felt at the time quite ambitious, but seem to have been reasonably backed up. But I think, yeah, particularly, I guess we're going into this window, we again just said, top 10 at National would be a good run, but I think you could see throughout the window, we sort of both of us have been growing in confidence, so I could probably go a bit better than that. So yeah, we had quite a few chats about how to go about it for the National Cross itself.
I think, sure, backing that up, Lam, is a lot of times Slade would run a race and like Liverpool Cross is a good example and stuff, and would finish X position, top 20, whatever. And it wasn't because, I think we always have this debate, don't we, Lum, when you look at athletes and you look at their ceiling and you look at their ability. And one of the reasons Slade was only coming, let's say 20th or whatever, just the guys around him had more years on him. And I would say, you're just as good as these guys. Like you've got what it takes to be on their level, but they've got 2 extra years. They've been training at a much higher level for the last 2 years, and that's the only reason they're better than you. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you can have just as good as training and be on the same par, and someone might simply just be faster than you. But I truly believe that I think Slade's finally started coming around to that actually, the only difference between me and these guys is they've probably just got another 18 months, 24 months of really solid training behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, you mentioned that commitment in terms of, I guess, as a 1430 guy, or I guess the equivalent side on the women's side, you do have a bit of a decision to make, and it's, do you, I guess, particularly any athlete who is doing it alongside full-time work. So Rich, you've got a proper job, if you like, and a 9 to 5. So what is it like, I guess, considering in your own mind, do I want to get on with my life, or do I want to basically train as an elite athlete alongside full-time work? What was that kind of decision like, and was it as conscious as that, or was it something that you just fell into it and you always were going to do anyway?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that conscious. So I didn't ever have a switching point or anything, I don't think. But yeah, like I said, when I was coming to Oxford, I was already doing obviously pretty similar volume of running, just slightly less structured. So it wasn't a huge change in time commitment as much as a change in just like direction and like maybe focus a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's running's obviously pretty good as a sport. So it's not compared to some other like endurances. You've got like cycling where you've got to do crazy hours, where running's slightly more doable around a full-time job. So yeah, I don't. Wasn't again probably quite a common theme. I wasn't thinking about it too much. Just sort of fell into it, I suppose.
Yeah. To be fair, I guess that's similar to most of Matt's athletes anyway, mate. I think of the students as being full-time athletes, but not at Oxford. Is that fair to say, Matt?
Sorry, mate. I thought I was sort of Richard Slade. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are full-time as well. Probably more full-time than Slade, actually. The hours they're putting in and the exam schedules and stuff like that. So, but they've always done a great job at balancing everything. And I think that's something that they all share in common. I think they realise that you get out what you put in, and their work ethic transfers over to running. Their ability to push themselves academically is their greatest strength when it comes to training as well. Their drive when they come down the track, and I think Slade will agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And is that something that you really consider when you're planning, Matt? Like, is it this guy's got a full-time job, so these sorts of days for these sorts of sessions, or is it very much like a program that, Rich, you can like move around yourself a bit?
Do you know what? I've always been a believer. You've got to work with what you got around you. And at Oxford, we do have a fantastic setup, and so we're training on Monday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays are the kind of main sessions, and so to be honest, it's been utilising those. So I haven't given Slade any flexibility really, and I don't think he would want that, because it would mean missing out on the fantastic group we have, and he probably hasn't run a mile on his own in a session for a very long time, and then all the easy runs are with company as well. So I think keeping him in sync with that system has been a massive strength. But again, certainly it is something that I do think about when you're setting training for the Oxford lot, because I know whatever I put on the schedule, because they are so driven, they will go and do. And Slade is the same. Like, I never have to worry about people cutting things short. It's more either doing more, or if I've been a little bit over ambitious in setting training, I haven't quite realised how tired they are, I know they'll go and get it done at kind of all costs. So I guess I do have to be careful in that realm.
Yeah, for sure. Right, let's chat about the national a bit, but more like just the start of this season. So you guys mentioned like 29th in 2023, first in that September national in 24. Like that 29th is probably a better run than the 21st, right? Because, well, I don't know, people might slay me for this again, but I think I said last week that national didn't really count, right? The September national case. These are great runs, but they don't suggest that you're going to win come February, right? So at what point do you start thinking a bit of a title charge is possible? Because you got some good results throughout the season, but was there a bit of a catalyst in there? Like, obviously you mentioned like 13th for Liverpool, I think, and a few races in Europe as well.
Yeah, and I think that 21st of September was pretty rubbish. Like that was I was thinking at all. I think like I was a bit injured over the summer, and then I got back into like some reasonable like shape for like some track running, but like I just didn't have anywhere near just like the background, just like base training for 12k cross at all. So that just fell flat out from like meter one. And then yeah, after that we just had like a week long, I think this week completely off, and then got back into some training and went to Liverpool. We weren't really focusing on Liverpool too much this year, so we only went in, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 weeks like behind us, and we both, I think, at least I was pretty surprised at how well that went off that. And on that I just thought, oh man, if I get further into the block to races we're actually like focusing more on, then this could obviously a pretty good sign. And I think particularly with the Spain England one after that, when obviously I was out there, I beat Tamer, beat Alfie, beat Jacob. Obviously Tamer was not far off, winning Liverpool, and then like I've forgotten where he came at Eurocross, like 18th, 19th, maybe like a couple of like really good runs. And off that, I was like, man, that's if I'm competing with these guys, then surely I could be running pretty well at the national and everything as well.
And it's interesting you mentioned who you beat there, because Matt and I were having a discussion about this, and I think it's right. You beat basically everyone who was lined up on that national star list except Kingston this season, like prior to the national.
Yeah, I think that must be right. I guess Kingston, was doing like under 23 trials at Liverpool, so I wouldn't have raced against him there. So I don't think I even raced against Kingston once before national properly. This winner.
Yeah, and how much is that something that's something that I guess you were thinking about? Because I know Matt was aware of it, but is that something again that you were thinking about as an athlete, that actually you've already got a few scalps this year and you're capable of beating these guys? Or again, was it just a bit of, I don't know, like I'm in good shape and I'm in contention?
It was me thinking about it a little bit. Like, you're going down the start list for national, and obviously like Emil's in there, Momo's in there, and you're like, oh well, surely these guys aren't going to turn up. But outside of them, like you said, you look at them, and it's a lot of people who I've been competitive against and beating this winter, which I sort of try not to think about too much. But then when we got national, I actually got to the top of the hill, and I looked around at like the front group, and I was like, oh, I should probably win this. Actually, that's And that's why I was like, oh no, this could go quite wrong. But that's like, obviously I'm like, this is like, I'm in a group with a bunch of people who I've been like slightly better than this winter, so I was pretty aware of it then.
Wow, so quite late then. Actually, in the race itself, that's when the realization comes. And I'm not sure, but there's probably not many people listening who can relate to that, to be honest. Because that must be a pretty incredible feeling, particularly kind of at Parley Hill and at the National Cross Run.
I would say for that, like first couple of K, that felt maybe like a little bit scary. I felt like I suddenly realised there was some level of like expectation behind it, as opposed to just not hoping I could do it. And then obviously as the race played out, that turned into a pretty great feeling down the home straight.
Yeah, for sure. And Matt, on the side of the course, like I know you, even before the race, you were thinking maybe not that Rich should win, but that he had a real shot and he definitely was in contention. We previewed the race on the podcast. As soon as recording finished, he was like, as Slade, but we were mentioning that on the pod just to, I guess, get under the radar a bit. And I think that's fair enough. Like, did that help Rich as well? I guess I've asked two questions there, but like, did it help when I guess not many people would, and I think it's fair to say after those previous national results, you're not, despite having a great cross season before that, you're not a name that people were thinking, this guy's going to take the win,
I mean, that was quite nice, I guess, that people weren't like looking at me too much. But I feel like it doesn't matter too hugely. I guess, like, I don't know if there's anything, like, obviously people watching maybe, weren't expecting me to be up there. But I feel like most of the people, around that top 5, top 10 would have been at least somewhat aware of the winter, right? So I don't think anyone in the race would have done anything too differently. But it's quite nice to go, somewhat under the radar beforehand and just like be able to get on with it without anyone looking too closely.
For sure. And Matt, then I guess during the race, at what point do you think it's on? Because Rich is saying he's getting to the top of the hill thinking I should win this. Are you worried about like what he's doing? Are you thinking I need to get instructions to him, or is it just like a bit of motivation and I guess enjoying it because your work in many ways is done?
Yeah, it was. We had a bit of a game plan going in. The game plan was to actually just make contact with the leaders after the first lap. But when I saw him get to the top of the hill, he was already very much in contact, if not kind of leading the race. So, that was kind of objective number one ticked. And I thought, we did a few hill sessions during this winter, some long hills, replicate that first hill at Parliament Hill. And they surprised me. He was very, very good on those, very strong. So I knew he'd get to the top of the hill quite well. And then, obviously, that's arguably one of the muddiest sections of the course. And he's really strong in the mud. So that opening piece, I was like, okay, this is good. I know there's going to be people up at the front who are actually working quite hard, even though, it's so early on in the race. It's just natural to be working hard at Parliament Hill within that first K or two. And then as the race unfolded, it kind of went as we'd expect, a few in the front group and slowly just thinning out over time. But then we did want to kind of make a bit of a move at the end of this sort of midway through that second lap on that far field, just to kind of test and let the field whittle itself down a little bit. But as for instructions to get to Slade, it was difficult because him and Kingston were inseparable for so much of that race. So I didn't feel like I could say anything regarding the outcome of the race. I think I said one thing to him. I said, just be adaptable to what we'd planned, because obviously we planned a few moves and a few surges during the race, but I think Kingston was doing such a good job and they were side by side. It was almost like, and the field, it was them two from Slade about 4K in, was it? It was clear it was just going to be a two-man race from about 3-4K.
Maybe it's like fairway into the second lap, probably with bed down to just us two, so maybe closer to like 5-6. But for quite a while it was just us two at the front. I remember you were were shouting. You kept shouting at me at one point. And it was like, it's a game of chess, ladies. A game of chess. And keep going with that.
It is. It is. And I often say that to the Oxford lot when it's varsity as well, because it's a head-to-head battle. And I think this is when the sport's at its best. It's just a pure battle. There's no times involved. There's no lap splits. It's just, responding, making moves. And every hill these guys were going up, they were having to match one another. Every muddy section, there were times where we would see, and we were almost panicking a little bit in that far field. Kingston would take a different line to Slade, and he would put 5 meters on Slade, and it's like those little things can cost you a race if they add up over time. So, but then I think when I obviously, like everyone, when they went into the woods for the final time, and I kind of knew then that whoever comes out top from those woods at the far side is probably going to go on to win this race. The lap runners were obviously starting to really play a factor as well. And our plan was always to really squeeze it coming out of the woods. From speaking to Slade after it, kind of that sounded like it happened naturally, that squeeze, and he sort of found himself up at the front feeling good, and it was kind of now or never.
Do you agree with that, Rich?
Yeah, I think like a little bit when you're going into the woods, there's that obviously steep hill at the back end of there, and then going up there, obviously, I just found myself sort of moving like past James, like without really like putting the surge in. And once I did that, I figured that seemed like a good time, obviously, to put a few good steps in. I was like, at that point, I did then obviously surge, and there's like about maybe 100 meters of like reasonable running at the top of that hill, which was good. So I was able to flow a little bit for that. And then once you get down into that field again, it's like back into like the crazy mud. And then, as Matt said, there's so many runners like you're mapping, and I think as soon as there's any gap, you just like lose sight of people, and it just gets very hard to catch back on.
Yeah, I think so. I think it almost helps, doesn't it, if you're on the right end of that you can use those to keep going, and it'd have been hard for Kingston to really see how much of a gap you'd put on him.
Yeah, I mean, I think just had no idea. I mean, obviously, I also had no idea the other way, like where he was. He could have been like 5 meters behind me, or he could have been like 100 meters behind me, and just like had that absolutely no clue. So, but I think that, like you said, that's better when you're up front. But if you're trying to chase and you don't know what you're trying to catch up with,
for sure. And then obviously, look, you go on to win the race. Fantastic result. How does that feel? Because it's, as I said right at the start, this is a breakthrough performance for someone like yourself. So how did that feel?
That is unbelievable. Going down the final hill and into the home straight, and just at the front of the home straight, Matt was there. A few of the boys from Oxford will come out as well, and they were just like, they were going crazy. That straight was, yeah, that was such a good feeling, and then across the line and everything was so good. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it too much, but it was, yeah, very, very gratifying of the work we've done, and then just also, yeah, elated for the whole weekend, basically.
Yeah, and then Matt made you come to training on Monday.
No, to be fair, he was resting.
Oh, okay, yeah, he just came down to show off his silverware, right?
Yeah,
came down for a chat.
Yeah, I think that's what's cool is Slade only lives a few hundred meters from Iffley Road. So yeah, we came there. I didn't actually speak post race about the race. Obviously, there's a lot of emotions and celebrations and stuff. So in fact, Monday was more just about like getting his thoughts on the race, because I didn't know how he felt at different points, etc. We just hadn't had that conversation yet.
Yeah, didn't do a Guardiola then on the course, just telling him where he went wrong. Good stuff.
To be honest, yeah, he didn't really put a foot wrong out there. And I think that's what's special about Parley Hill as well. It's always like an anticipation for the crowd, like who's going to come through that top corner in the lead. And obviously the live stream was dropping in and out all over the place and couldn't really follow the guys up front. So, and then obviously, we darted back from that far field. And so to see him come in with as big as lead as he had was just amazing.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to, I guess, touch upon some of the training in the build-up, because Matt, you mentioned some of those specific hill sessions. How much specificity was there over the course of the winter? Like, I guess for cross country generally, rather than just a lot of people, the winter it's just work, right? It's volume based, but not necessarily cross country targeted. And then specifically for Parliament Hill as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just, over the winter they just train on their general fitness and just hope they can deliver in races. With Slade, the biggest thing was let's just really target the race and let's train specifically for that. And not every week was super specific, but there were a few key moments during the season which were, and we really replicated Parliament Hill as much as possible. Yeah, we started off doing some really good hill loops, and then we sort of moved to these long gradual hills, which actually we probably only did 2 or 3 of those up at Whiteham.
Yeah, it was only 2, I think.
Only 2. So, but it was kind of like he was fortunate enough that he absorbed them really well. And it was like seeing him just do even just a couple of those. I was like, okay, well, these long gradual hills at Parley Hill aren't going to be a problem. And there's a lot of them. So that was good. But the biggest, I guess, potentially a bit of luck that we had as well, and the most specific work we did were the 2 races he did for England post-Christmas, because they were so relatable to Parliament Hill in kind of 2 different ways. The first one in Elgabar, there was a long gradual hill which he had to do 5 times. And it was kind of, fast at start. You got the Africans in there, and obviously he was up against England boys. And again, the objective, I know for the second one, the objective was to be the first England man home, but I can't remember if we've discussed it for that first one in Elgabar to try and win, to try and beat the likes of Tamara and Alfie.
I was very concerned I was going to be last at that Elgabar one. Because I wasn't even meant to be in that team. I only ended up running that because David Stone got ill. And I'm looking at, obviously Tamara and Alfie and Jacob, and they'd all beaten me at Liverpool where it was muddy. And I'm normally pretty good in the mud, and this was going to be way drier and in Spain. And, these guys have all gone way quicker on the tracks than I have. So I was going into that, and I was like, just trying not to get embarrassed by all of them, basically. I mean, that ended up working out sort of my favour, so I did get out very sensibly. It worked through pretty well, just based on if I had got up quite cautiously. But yeah, I don't think we had. I think you maybe just said to try and get a couple of them in the back half, something like that. But I don't think we would have mentioned being first in English at all for that.
Yeah, I remember now. Actually, we were sort of looked at the Liverpool results, and I think we were like maybe 15, 20 seconds behind a couple of them. And it was a case of like, can we reduce that margin? Can we get a little bit closer, a couple months on? And potentially take a couple. But the long drag there, I mean, from debriefing with Slade after, he felt really good on that section of the course. And so that was like a really specific, okay, that's one very similar to that first hill at Parley Hill. And also it's very similar to kind of all those hills out the back in the woods and stuff. So that worked really well. And then, a few weeks later, he went out to Belgium, and that was just relatively flat, but an absolute mud bath. And the good thing about that one was, I think we had a few more internationals that he could actually match up against. I mean, he was kicking with, he got dipped by Kimeli, and he wasn't a million miles off like Hendricks, who got 3rd at the European Cross in Brussels when it was just really, really muddy. And obviously he's a very good 10,000 meter runner himself. So I think after that result, you're like, okay, you're actually competing with guys who are 27 low 10K runners, 13 low 5K runners, and holding them over the cross. There's not going to be too many Brits who can sort of perform on that level at Parliament Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. And the speed was there as well. Can't remember exactly what you ran, sorry, but at Armagh, big PB for you as well over in the 5K.
Yeah, 13:49 out in Armagh. So yeah, I guess that was another one we ran out. So obviously felt like I was in a bit better shape than 14, but just anything sub 14 I would have taken, because that's a big barrier to get under. I think off the back of that, like, I've always been, as Matt said, like, pretty competitive in cross with people who are often better than me in 5K, 10K, maybe like 20 seconds up the road in the 5K. And then if I'm in 30 to 50, I guess there's not really anyone in the race who's in 30 to 30 shape. So it's pretty promising.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's chat about, I guess, what a typical week's training for you looks like. I know Matt's got one up in preparation. Because I think, well, it's because I always ask the question and guests are always too coy about it. So I thought, well, we'll ask you guys. Let's chat about, you mentioned, Matt, it was quite a big session before Armagh that you were like, okay, this is a pretty good indicator. But what's the overall week looking like for someone like Slade?
I think even before that, it's worth noting that Slade's best sessions came in races. His best session was Elgabar, then it was Brussels, then it was Belgium Cross, and then it was Armagh. Like, through the winter, those were his best sessions, and anything else that he did around that weren't on the same level. And then obviously, Parliament Hill was next. And again, I'm a big believer in actually being able to use those races as sessions. And we we got a bit of luck that those conditions were so good abroad, well, so relatable to Parliament Hill. Others would argue that the conditions were terrible. But I guess, a couple weeks out from Armagh or 10 days out from Armagh, we did, a session which is kind of a 5K specific session that I've, been Mark Scott has kindly given me. Is what a Bowerman's used to do quite a bit as well. And it's worked quite well when we've adopted it. So, Slade did a mile, 1200, 800, 400 fast, and then finishing with a fast mile on the end as well, sort of starting at 5K and getting quicker. So it's kind of similar to a bit of a Michigan out there as that some people do out there as well. So, he's finishing up that last mile in was it 4:24, Slade?
4:22, I think, maybe. So
there you go. For 4:22, and sort of grinding away on his own, and we started just inside. Was it just outside 4:30?
I think, from memory, I think it's 4:28, 3:12, 2:03, 57, 4:22. I think it's the splits for that one.
So that was.
Like I said, we really didn't do that much. But one of maybe 2 or 3 properly hard sessions we did all winter. I think like you said, it's mostly just the racing and then more considered training around that.
You're out on the track, yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing. He is on the track twice a week.
I don't expect anything else of you, mate. I've been seeing you train since you were 18.
Every week, to be fair.
Yeah.
So Mondays and Wednesdays is on the track, but that's partly because there's very limited places to actually tempo and get some endurance sessions out in Oxford after dark. So he's down Iffley Road all the time, basically.
One thing with the job is that ideally I think you would have me on grass more often in the winter, but obviously when it's dark, there's no great option for that. There's no nicely floodlit field or anything. So you sort of have to go on the track.
Yeah, for sure. And then a session like that, what does that look like within the context of a week? Like you mentioned, obviously your Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, which is slightly different from the usual. So how do you work that with I guess a long run on a Sunday and things like that?
Yeah, that was obviously the focus that week. Monday was relative. Usually on Monday we will do a bit of turnover work, which has been important for Slade to really just improve. I mean, one is 1500 time, hopefully this summer, but just also the speed, and it is finally starting to click in that area, and hence why he's been able to perform over the 5K quite really well. And so that was obviously on the Wednesday, and the Saturday was a relaxed kind of tempo and again speed work. So just doing some mile reps in between the mile reps, we would do 6.2s in sort of 30 seconds with a minute recovery. And then a couple of weeks prior to the national, even though he had Armagh, round the corner, it was very important for him to just do some 30K long runs and be on feet for kind of well over 2 hours, just because I've always said it, when it comes to the Parliament Hill and the English National, with it being 12K over cross country, there's very few in that race who can actually race it. And I knew that, in order for Slade to really compete and feel like he's racing and engaged for the whole 12K, he's going to need to go way, way over that distance. So, that was, probably some of your longest long runs, wasn't it, in that sort of couple of weeks leading up to the national that he would do. And so that was, he was doing a 30K long run 4 days prior to Armagh.
Yeah, it was the Sunday before Armagh had a 30K one to do. So it's a real crash taper into Armagh. I think we had that 30K long run and then 3 days of running where I probably totaled in K jogging and then into the race.
Yeah. You're so Kenyan, Matt, working in Ks as well.
I've had to transition. I've had to work in both now. Yeah, K's mainly now is taking over. But that was that was something that we included. We don't often sort of get up to that distance too much. But Slade is right. It was a real crash. And
are you taking over in those long runs, Slade, or are you just jogging or keeping it easy still?
It depends if more is there or not, I suppose. For the most part, we that's all super easy. I mean, like we're saying, we're training Saturday and then we have a slight speed stuff on Monday as well. So if we're also rolling on the long run, but that gets to be a very hard weekend. So it tends to always be easy time on feet stuff in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's easy for you?
I run pretty slow. I think a lot of my runs, again, I work in Ks, but a lot outside 4:30, definitely in the 7s for miles.
Yeah.
So really, super easy.
Absolutely. And I guess looking forward then, you've had great result for both of you last weekend. You mentioned, I guess, getting your 1500 time down a bit as well as I guess a secondary goal maybe. But How do you kick on from here? Because you've gone into this race, we mentioned like a bit under the radar maybe to a lot of people, maybe not the people around you in the race, but you've now got, I'd say there's going to be some expectation that you feature more than maybe you have previously, and to top that, you're going to have to go and I guess do something at Liverpool or run a serious time. So how do you go about planning to make sure that happens?
Slade, if you want to go
That's
first,
the right here, I think. I don't know.
I guess, I think, we'll sit there. He's actually got a nice little holiday lined up. He's going to go over to Vietnam for a couple of weeks. And I think that's something which quite big on as well, is actually having, when we spoke earlier on in the season, back in sort of back end of the summer, I said to him, we need 2 clear goals for the next 12 months. And we need to make sure training is very kind of periodized and specific for each build. And so, the national came at the end of block number 1. And then, block number 2 will just be the summer. And I think the first goal is to try and qualify for British champs on the track and compete in that 5K, get a first taste of a British Championships over the 5,000. Obviously, we're a super deep nation at the moment in that. And then you're right, Lum, it's starting to decide what sort of route we look to do over the next 12, 24, 36 months. But we've definitely got starting to form a longer term plan. And I think if people listen to this podcast, take anything from it, I think it's important, no matter what level you are, to actually look and decide, where do I want to be in sort of 4 years? What am I working towards? So easy in this country to just go from one race to the next. I mean, there's a 5K every couple of weeks. And if you're at this, a lot of people at the start of the season go, okay, I want to improve my 5K time, but then they find themselves trying to get a 5K PB every few months. And it just doesn't work like that. You've got to go, right, I'm going to improve my 5K time. Okay, well, I'm going to give myself, I might need 2 16-week blocks here to really hit it hard. Or I might just need 1 20-week block, whatever it is, and double down on that and just do, and all the things, work backwards, all the things in between there are geared towards that 5K PB. So I guess, Slade will have some personal goals that he'll be stewing on, but, my job will just be to get him in the best shape he can in the summer. And then especially, there is the World Cross on the horizon, which is obviously special for us, Lum, as well, being in Tallahassee. We've been out there a couple of times in America.
Yeah, and Slade, for you then, is there anything that you're like, okay, in the next year or even 4 years, is like that's what I want to kind of like make a name for myself in,
I'd love to make a like proper GB team on the cross in the next couple of years. Would be like very much like the main goal. Like this summer, like I said, like qualifying for British champs would be great, but obviously I'm not making any championships in the track anytime soon. So just get some money, improve some times, stay healthy, and then run again next winter, I suppose, in the short term at least.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been great to chat to both of you. Great to have Matt on as a guest today as well. But Rich, congrats again on last weekend, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much. Cheers.